like RuPaul Drag Race background?
I'm obsessed. I mean, like, my apartment is a disaster, and that's why I was like, let me just buy a backdrop and call it a
Which I
day.
need to. I had one commenter say that it looks like a close-up of like a Bounty paper towel.
Oh. I mean, I guess I can kind of see that, but I wouldn't say Bounty. Anyway. Okay. So, Raif, thank you
Yeah.
so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, of course. Why don't we start a little bit, people who are watching may not know about your story. So why don't we just start by you sharing a little bit about you and your journey, what brought you here?
So I was diagnosed with AIDS in 2012. Complete shock to me. I was in a what I thought was a 3.5-year monogamous committed relationship. And it was AIDS, to differentiate from HIV. It had progressed that far, and thought I was going to die. And eventually learned very quickly, steep learning curve, that I'm not going to die, that the medicine has changed very much so. And even from then till now, I mean, medicine is dramatically changing all the time. And the thing I noticed when looking and researching for help for community and stuff like that online specifically, I really wasn't seeing very much that I personally could relate to. And so I asked myself if that was something that I felt I could help fill the void in that vacuum. And so I started, eventually I got to a point where I felt comfortable enough to do my first video vlog on YouTube. And the response was immediate and intense. And so I just knew there was a need there. And so that's what I've been doing ever since on social media.
How did you feel? Oh my gosh, that first video. Like, what was
Oh God.
Like, okay, so like I remember when I came out, I did this thing on HIV Plus magazine, and they flew me to LA, and I got to,
that was the very first thing you did?
Yeah, that was my coming out. I know, and so I can't even imagine. Like, my heart fell into my butt for most of that, that shoot,
Mm-hmm.
the day up until it came out. So how did you feel filming that first video?
I mean, there was so much there. I mean, it took me probably a year to finally actually do it and post it. And there were some real life ramifications. I was just reconnecting with my biological father, from who I hadn't had any communication with since I was 5 years old, and conservative Muslim living in Morocco, Netherlands. And the family, kind of that side of the family, found out that I was thinking about doing it. And they were like, if you post this video, we're going to disown you and you're cut out. We won't have any association with you. And so I really had to think about, like, well, okay, what is this worth to me? Is this something I want to do? And is it worth sacrificing what, I was hoping to develop into a relationship? And ultimately, obviously, I made the right choice.
Wow.
But yeah, it was nerve-wracking, and I had to sacrifice.
Yeah. And that's something that I think people who are living with HIV have to constantly think about. Like, what does it mean to disclose my status? What does it mean to tell people that I'm HIV positive? To kind of like walk around, at least for me, and be like, okay, like, you're the HIV guy. And with all the stigma that's out there, what can you say to someone who may be watching who is ashamed of their status, or someone who may be watching and is ignorant or fearful of a person living with HIV? Can you talk to them?
Yeah, and you bringing up other people having to face decisions like that and experiences and feelings of stigma is exactly it. It's not fair. It shouldn't just be on the person living with HIV. It's about everybody. And if we feel that way, it's because the community writ large is putting us in a position where we have to question things like that. And as someone else who's not living with HIV, like, think twice about how you're judging people living with HIV. It could be your brother, it could be your aunt, it could be your grandma who has HIV. And are you going to ridicule them, judge them, put a label on them if they're someone that you care about and love. So why put someone in that position where they have to ask themselves, am I worthy of being myself, of being that honest? Do I deserve love and all those things? And to
Amen.
someone living with HIV, that is a very personal decision. And I would never, ever, ever say, you need to come out and you need to do it right now. And it needs to be on social media or on a magazine. It's a very different journey for every single person. And there's no right answer to that. I think the only right thing is that you are living in harmony with your heart and your mind.
Hmm.
And you have to ask yourself what is important to you personally. To me personally, it's so important for me to live openly and honestly as much as I can. So for me, it was like there wasn't even a question about it.
Oh, I love that. Live in harmony with your heart and your mind. I'm stealing. Wait,
Steal my heart.
what?
I said, steal my heart.
Okay. Oh, talk to me about your videos today. If I'm tuning in for the first time, like, what are your videos about? What am I watching?
I just did a video recently of giving my dog a DNA test.
Oh my.
At the start of the pandemic, I did a video on installing a bidet during the toilet paper crisis 2020.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so my partner and I were literally just talking about we have to get a bidet.
Oh, I mean, okay. So I'm gonna be real. I can't replace toilet paper necessarily, but I've removed like 90%. 90% of it is water, and then a little 10% to dab and finish it up, and we're good.
I don't know why I still can't. Wow, that's amazing.
So, I mean, it's HIV focused, but you're going to get a sprinkling of just lifestyle because, and that's how it should be. HIV isn't, that's not our lives.
Hmm.
And so, me doing a vlog about my life is going to include so many more things. Fitness.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, same for me, like getting to share my story. It's important for me too to live openly and honestly and just lead with love and lead with my whole self. And HIV is just a part of who we are. It's not the end all be all. Like, I know for me, I remember thinking like, why me? And just all these really terrible things that have nothing to do with anything other than like my own stigma and shame in my mind. And like you, like once I got into harmony with my heart and my mind, I realized, oh, this is just a part of who I am, and it only makes me stronger.
And you're so generous of spirit and of yourself, whether it's on social media or doing campaigns, or I met you at my first conference that I went to. You were so warm and welcoming and inviting, and that's just your energy in general, which is so great for our community and for visibility. um, I'm curious, are there people in your life, allies or advocates, who kind of helped you come to that place where you felt ready to accept yourself?
Hmm. I would say yes and no. Like, kind of like you, I have family that is very conservative and didn't want me. First of all, didn't want me to come out as gay, let alone, come out as HIV positive. And so, like I say, a lot of the discovery happened within myself, to be honest. But I did have a lot of mentors along the way. Um, there was one person in particular who helped me decide, you know, on whether or not I was going to share my story. And this person, said to me, this is a really precious piece of information. This is something that, once you make this decision, you can't take it back. Um, but at the same time, this person was like, I think that once you share your story, you're going to not only help a lot of other people, but I think this is going to be helpful for you too. Um, and they couldn't have been more right. Like, I have never felt so confident and so like proud of myself. And that doesn't mean that like I don't have days. I definitely do. But I think of myself like 10 years ago when I started my journey. Like I went to college on an activism scholarship, and so I just think about like me 10 years ago to now, and like 10 years ago I would have never expected that this is who I'd be, like what I'd be doing and my place in the world. So it feels really cool to have had that, like, I don't know, something in me was fighting to be my own advocate, but at the same time, like I couldn't have done it without the support of other people.
Yeah, it's almost like 99% of it is me doing the work inside and figuring out, okay, I'm ready to do this. And then you just need someone kind of at the door saying, go, yeah,
Mhm.
I give you permission, do it.
Mhm.
And then you're like, let's go.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, how do you feel today as you, like as someone who is a huge advocate and is so known, and you're doing so many incredible things? Like, I'm so inspired by what you're doing every day, as someone living with AIDS and sharing their story and being open. How do you feel today? Like, do you have the support that you need? And tell me.
I it's like you said, it's so self-affirming to do something that is really huge in our minds and profound and scary, and to do it for ourselves, knowing that that's how we live in our truth. When you do that, despite all the things that can go wrong and all the negative bad things that can happen, it's so self-affirming, and it feels so good. You just want to do more of it. I I find that the thing I struggle with really is I feel like I'm never doing enough. And I feel like there's always more that I can do and should do. And I got to figure out how to get there. But I kind of have a sneaking suspicion that I'll always feel that way.
Yeah, I feel
I
like
definitely have support.
mm,
Yeah, that's not a problem for me.
that's so good. I feel like that's that imposter syndrome that just like never freaking goes away.
Yeah. I I like it in a sense because I'm never settling. I can kind of look at what I've done. You know, recently I did the little cover for see, I just I just diminished myself. I was like a little cover.
You're talking about
I did the cover for ANU magazine.
yeah, you look amazing. What are you talking about? It's
Super
amazing.
cool. So I saw it and I'm proud of it. I'm happy with it, but I'm always like, okay, what's the next thing? What do I need to be working on?
Hmm.
So
Well,
I
even though you feel that way, you, I mean, and but you like are giving so much visibility to people who, like, I think about wishing I had role models who looked like me growing up, and we don't
same.
do that. You know what I mean? For folks, like, how important is visibility to you?
It's everything. And I think having people of color as visibility is so vitally important. I was just thinking, I often think about how I've idealized like the white man in my head to be like
Mm.
aspirationally all that I desire and want in the world, and how I've been brainwashed to idealize that by like Disney movies and stories, and and just realizing over time more and more how I didn't see someone like me growing up who was admirable, who was the hero, who was the strongest one, saving other people and loyal and had integrity and was honest. And so I think it's so crucially important for not just here in the US, but all over the world, because a lot of what we do here, gets shared across the world. A lot of the world looks to the US, whether we deserve it or not, for
Ah,
guidance.
yeah. Yeah, it's so important. The first teacher that I had that looked like me was college, my first year of college.
Mm,
So for me too, it's just so important, especially because, thinking about Black people are not a monolith, and I very much don't fit inside of a box or inside of a square. And so I take a lot of pride in that I am a Black person who can kind of defy stereotypes of what people expect. And it's
Yeah,
important for me, you know what I mean, to be visible for Black people, but also show that we are not all the same.
exactly. And I relate to that so much. I'm half Moroccan,
Mhm.
so I have some Middle Eastern. I'm also more than a quarter Indonesian, a little bit of Chinese, and then I have Dutch in me. So I feel like ethnically connected to Africa and to Asia and to Europe. And yeah, I mean, more and more people don't just fit into one little mold. We're an amalgamation of so many different things, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
And we need to lean into that more.
Last thing, why don't you talk to me about this year's theme for World AIDS Day, which is, you know, our shared responsibility. Do you believe it's our shared responsibility to end this epidemic?
Yeah, and I feel that that applies to everything. Like,
Mhm.
we don't get to just look in our 10-foot radius and say what impacts me directly, and that's all I'm going to worry about. As easy and as comfortable as that is to do, I'm going to use a really dorky analogy, but it's like the hobbits in the Lord of the Rings. You know, they're all a little comfortable in the Shire, and what they can't see, it's like, oh well, guess what? Like, that evil dude is going to come for you whether you like it or not. So you better start paying attention.
Oh my God, that is wild that you use that as a reference because I just watched the third movie last night.
Did you really? Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, and there will always be a minority, and there will always be people who are ostracized and on the fringe, and who are looked at as less than. And it's not fair to expect a small few people to defend themselves from the status quo. So there's always a need for the majority to step up and say, hey, we need to look out for this group of people.
Amen. Thank you, Rafe. This was
Yeah.
amazing, and I'm so glad that we got the chance to chat. And
Yeah.
I hope that you have a happy World AIDS Day. Happy World AIDS Day, everyone.
Happy World AIDS Day.